So, it's been a couple of years since we saw this quote-unquote conclusion of the mess that is House of Cards, and I thought we'd look back at the situation, especially since we've run into the same situation with The Expanse. And Hollywood just loves to kill off our favorite characters just because their actors are assholes in real life. So yes, this is gonna be another video of why I think Kevin Spacey's character, Frank Underwood, should not have been killed off, especially off screen. Spoiler warning, although I really don't think you need it by this point. Hi, I'm Ohms and welcome to OmzLaw. So let's start off with the disclaimers since we gotta do these nowadays or else people will question your intentions or values. In regards to Kevin Spacey, who has publicly apologized and is apparently seeking help, I do not condone his behavior as it is unacceptable, unprofessional, and a criminal act. But our conversation today is not about the actor at all. And so this is my second disclaimer. I am a firm believer in separating the actor from the character. It's really important to separate the two, as the characters we see on screen are merely personas, representations of characteristics, traits, personalities that are handpicked by the writers, directors, and actors. They do not tell us much about the actor, how they behave in real life, for example, based on real events with real people. So I'm just gonna put this down there as well. I will be referring to the character as Frank and the actor as Kevin throughout this video, and I hope viewers watching this understand these stark differences between the two. I'm not going to give a lesson in history in this video, you can check out the Alex Kamal one for that, but I will be speaking from experience as a film and theater director, having explored and taught different styles of acting for the last 11 years. If you were a fan of the show at the time, you already knew that the quality of the show was severely degrading. It wasn't that it was bad, it just lost the momentum and the intrigue of the first seasons by the time the accusations had surfaced during the production of season 5. So the showrunners wrote him out of the show and gave a full season for Claire Underwood, which could have possibly been the worst decision they could ever make. The actor's performance is fine for the most part, but the character ends up falling flat and becoming very uninteresting very quickly, as Claire does not have Frank juxtaposed with her. And it's not like this is a bad decision in terms of storytelling, on the contrary. The showrunners tried really hard to shift the plot points towards this character's favor, regardless whether or not Frank was there. But Claire's character relied on Frank so much that his absence was really felt across the whole season. I mean, if you're gonna write him out, at least write in something interesting instead. This is a point I made with Alex Kamal. If you're gonna write him out, at least do it properly, finalize the character's arc, make sure you tie up the plot points properly. Now again, I'm not for the cancelling of Frank. On the contrary, I have many reasons why I'm against this. But if I'm forced into this choice by like my boss or some production or distribution company, then I would at least give him a proper send-off, which House of Cards sucked miserably at. So let's recap the plot and see where the story at least started to become lackluster. And of course, you can always use the timestamps to skip the summary if you don't need it. The series kicks off by establishing Frank Underwood, the highlight of the entire season, as a ruthless man. He performs mercy killing on a dog but seems to enjoy it slightly. He starts off the series as a congressman and then develops a somewhat romantic, creepy, and power-fueled relationship with a reporter named Zoe Barnes, whom he tips off with stories that benefit him politically and then uses them to take down the Secretary of State and get himself installed in that position. Frank exploits Congressman Peter Russo, who apparently has a drinking problem, to wield influence over a governor's race, but when Peter tries to get ahead, Frank puts him down. As the season unfolds, Frank becomes the Vice President of the United States. What's interesting about the first season is that it establishes a new style of breaking the fourth wall, done brilliantly by Kevin, we gotta give him that, and the new motion graphics we see on screen. The atmosphere, tone, and look of the series was also very well done, and almost always communicated the internal conflict the characters were experiencing. Realizing that Zoe Barnes is a threat to him, he decides to push her in front of a subway train. Yep, that's the first episode of the second season. This season becomes all about Frank fighting for the presidency. So he goes after the sitting president and secretly exposes his marital problems through back channels. Then he sets about discrediting Zoe Barnes' journalist boyfriend, Lucas, who knows Frank had something to do with her death and gets him locked up in prison after luring him into some shady online deals. There's a whole B story with Doug that I won't get into, but essentially Claire's character finally gets some development when she speaks about her sexual abuse at the hands of a high-ranking military figure. It's the first instance we see of Claire moving out of her world of business and non-profits and into the political scene. She becomes an advocator of reform and women's rights and a force to be reckoned with. By the end of the season, however, Frank gets the president to resign and is sworn in himself. You can see that by the end of season 2, Frank has already achieved his primary goal. So why on earth did this series keep going for another 4 seasons? Season 3 brings in Viktor Petrov, the Russian president, as Frank's rival, and their clashes honestly make for some great television drama. A lot of this season is wonky, boring political machinations, but the inclusion of Petrov and Claire's involvement in going up against him is alright, and should have been a sign that things needed to end very soon. Claire shines in the season by setting out to become the US ambassador to the United Nations. She is denied the position, but Frank gives her a recess appointment anyway. There's a whole plotline in Russia that I won't get into, but the drama is cool nevertheless. It gives Claire a lot of characterization which is needed, and it ends up jeopardizing their marriage as Claire ends the season by walking out on the president as he's preparing to leave for the important Iowa caucus. So season 4 is mostly the Underwoods doing battle against one another. By season's end, they'll be back on the same page, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. They sabotage one another when Claire goes after a seat in Congress in her hometown of Dallas, and Frank supports the woman she's running against. In retaliation, Claire's political consultant Leanna Harvey leaks a photo of Frank's father posing with a member of the KKK. He also gets shot and is in need of a liver transplant to save his life, and so he gets one after Doug Stamper gets the Secretary of Health to manipulate the donor list. By the end of the season, the assassination attempt brings the two Underwoods back together, and they realize they're more powerful with each other. And so we are introduced to their newest political opponent, Will Conway, a young vet and the Republican candidate for president. So you can see that the show has already started to run out of ideas by this point. A lot of subplots in season 5, but it mostly focuses on Frank's war on the ICO terrorists, the most prominent of whom is an American. Claire gets the man's mother to go in front of the media and ask him to turn himself in, but that doesn't work. Well, not exactly. As it turns out, Frank's had him captured the whole time, and then he has him killed. No trial, no media, and it all serves to make Frank look tough on terror. A fake terrorist threat executed by a hacker helps swing the election in favor of the Underwoods against Will Conway. And this is really where everything becomes so convoluted and stretched out. Claire becomes president for a bit before Frank once again takes over, but he ends up resigning after nearly killing Kathy Durant, supposedly to wield power in the private sector while Claire controls the government. All he needs now is a presidential pardon from his wife. So the season ends with Claire refusing to give him the pardon and asserting that she's going to be the Underwood with all the power now. So yeah, this thing should have ended by season 3 or 4, but let's discuss the decision here to kill Frank off screen at this moment. Clearly, the plot isn't done yet, and having Frank just disappear is disingenuous to the entire project and for the people involved in the sexual harassment. I'm obviously talking about the victims here. Allow me to explain. By taking out the character, the general audience is meant to assume that this is a purposeful decision by the writers to benefit the plot, outside or not influenced by any external factors. As was the case with Cas Anvar, some people don't even know that he got fired because of sexual allegations, due to the fact that his character was killed on screen, indicating that there was nothing wrong externally. In this case, it could be argued that it is more problematic because we don't even get to see his death in the final season, unlike Alex Kamal, who suffered a stroke, and even then his send-off was extremely awkward to say the least. By killing off the character this way in the story, Netflix essentially covered up the allegations by not calling attention to them. Should they have continued the series, hired another actor to play the part, this would indicate that Kevin was fired, and that his character has nothing to do with him. Now, his sudden disappearance in season 6 was also very questionable, so I bet viewers questioned this decision nevertheless. Some people will argue that no one can replace Kevin Spacey, and that statement couldn't be more ridiculous and false. There are plenty of actors in the world that would literally kill for an opportunity like that. The character of Daario Naharis is a great example from Game of Thrones. The switch happened between seasons, which could have been the same case here for House of Cards. And I bet the fanbase eventually would have accepted this change. Sure, it's not like they were replacing Daenerys or Cersei. Daario Naharis is basically a secondary character that can be replaced. But with some flashbacks with the new talent and maybe a shocking backstory, they could have made it work. Looking into the Batman series, which has undergone numerous changes, the new Joker played by Joaquin Phoenix is a great homage to Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight. Although the two films don't have anything to do with one another, I think you could imagine Phoenix taking part in the third Batman film without audiences really making a big deal out of it. With proper build-up and a decent plot, it would have worked, and it would have been much better than the hot mess we got. This is the same case with Frank Underwood. The story, plot, and characters are being undermined, not to mention the audience's intelligence is being undermined. And trust me, based on my experiences in theater, the audience can separate the actor from the character if they are treated with that level of respect and trained at separating the two. Both of which does not happen with House of Cards and The Expanse. In almost all of the performances I personally directed, the actors would regularly switch up or alternate characters as the story went along. In one play, almost 6 actors played the same character in different scenes, and all we had to do really was switch a cape around in order to indicate this change. And the audience believed it and went along. Now, some of you might point out that the suspension of disbelief in theater is higher than in film, and you might be right. But again, we're not talking about a huge difference. If you treat your audience with respect and continue the character with a different actor, you are essentially asking them to suspend their disbelief, something you ask them to do anyways while watching a film or a play. If done right and worked on, House of Cards could have extended for another 3 seasons with a new actor, adding something new to the character, thereby strengthening the legacy of House of Cards. Sure, a lot of assumptions are being made here, but killing off his character definitely did not do the show any justice, and in fact made it decline further in quality. Focusing season 6 on Claire seems like a good idea, but without Frank to fight her off, it's a one-sided battle that has no drama and is void of the setup it built up for so many years. Hollywood really needs to get over itself and begin normalizing the hiring of different actors for the same character. Theater, performance, Broadway, and some film and television series do this, and the general audience is absolutely fine with it. As mentioned in my previous video, we know we're watching a film. We know that these actors are playing characters. To Hollywood's credit, some people do have a problem separating the two, and I made this point in the previous video, so I'm taking it into account here as well. The idea is that Hollywood needs to educate us this way. It needs to conduct business this way, as it helps the victims receive more exposure. It helps to establish a firm stance against sexual harassment and assault, and that it will be called attention to no matter the production stakes. And that the story can go on with a new actor that can add new things to the character. Furthermore, it draws a line between the actor and the character, helping audiences be more critical and observant while watching films. And this is a very important point. Since the audience's emotions are being manipulated while watching a film, it's important for us as filmmakers and storytellers to make them aware of that. And trust me, being aware of it does not diminish the experience of watching a film. I still cry and laugh while watching films or series, and I have 2 degrees in the field. So no, it doesn't matter. But as always, let me know if you guys think Frank should have been killed off in the comments. I'd love to read all of your opinions. I try to respond to everyone, but it's been really hectic with the economic collapse in my country happening and the pandemic going on. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel, as it will really help me grow it. And as always, thank you for watching.